Well, it's not a story of when I first believed, because it's not that, because I believed when I was a child. And I was baptized, went to church, believed in God. I got in a relationship when I was in high school with a boy. It's actually Dalton's father. And he was just bad news. I knew he was bad news, but my mind wasn't right. I got away from church. I got away from my church family and my family. And that was the part that was hard, because I kept wanting to go back, but once I got away, I felt like I couldn't go back. So, moved out with him right after high school. Turned 18 in June, moved right out. In August that same year, 1999, I was with him. He decided to go pick up his uncle that I didn't know him, had never met him, and I came to realize that he'd just got out of prison. He was around 40 years old. We were young, but he's like, I'm going to go get my uncle and we're going to go to the house and he's going to give me a tattoo. And I said, okay. And I felt God, because I knew this wasn't where I was supposed to be that night. So I went to my stepsister's house where I'd never been before, and I wanted to see if she was home before I made it to my house. She wasn't there. So I went on to my house, still feeling that I was not where I needed to be. It happened later that after they had done what they did, he wanted to try his new Jeep out in the middle of the night in a strip pit area where we're from. And we had been there in the daytime plenty of times, but in the night it's different. There was no one else around, and we're pretty far out. First mud hole that we go through, we get stuck. And there's water coming in the Jeep doors, and we are stuck. We're not getting out. So we get out of the Jeep and we decide that we're going to stay till morning, till the daylight comes. We're going to go get help once daylight. So we sit there, we build a small fire. Me and my boyfriend, we doze off. It'd been a long night. I tried to stay awake, couldn't stay awake. So I hear a gunshot and I kind of look up and I see that the uncle has a gun. So I'm not going to let him know that I'm awake. So I just play, sleep. The next thing I know, he's touching me inappropriately. So I freak out. Don't know that that's the right word I'd use, but I got really nervous, got up, shook the boyfriend, nothing. So I say, I'm going to start walking. It was early morning. Not sunrise yet, but it's going to be sunrise soon. I thought, I know my way out of here. I'm going to get help. I'm going to go call somebody. So I walk, and he's behind me, and he says, I'm just showing you what kind of position that you're putting yourself in. And I said, I don't feel like I was putting myself in any sort of position. I was supposed to be safe with my boyfriend. And so the next thing I know, he says something, and it scared me, so I start running. I don't even know what it was he said. The whole situation was scary. I start running, he tackles me. From behind, I'm falling forward. Nothing I can do, really. So he's pretty much wrapped his arms around me from behind, and I'm trying to scramble to get up, and he has a gun to my head. So because I was brought up in a rural area, I know how to use a gun. My dad showed us when we were small, I would target shot and all that stuff. So I put my finger between the trigger and the trigger guard, because I thought, I'm not going to let him pull this trigger and kill me today. We fought around until I had a hold of the gun. It just wasn't meant to be, because he got control, and I got up and I started running, and instead of running the direction I needed to go, I ran towards the woods. Felt like I couldn't run anymore. Didn't hear anything, didn't feel anything, but when I looked down, I was bleeding. I was shot. So at this point, I know that I'm probably going to die. This is my day to die. So in my head, not out loud, but in my head, I prayed, and I just said, just don't let me lay here in these woods and die without my family knowing where I am. It wasn't about me dying. I just wanted my family to find me, to have closure if I did die, not to let me lay out there in the woods in Big South Fork country, not knowing anything. And I prayed, and it was hours and hours. I was raped, assaulted, and I talked to him. And I talked to the man, and I told him I'd never tell on him, and just let me get on back to my boyfriend and let me get on home, and I would never tell on him. I don't know how or why, except God, that it worked. I didn't feel anything. Some people say it's like an outer body experience. I didn't feel myself out of my body, but I just didn't feel anything. Nothing. I could see the things that was going on out of my body, but I was not feeling anything. I wasn't meant to feel it. Apparently, I wasn't supposed to feel the pain or the trauma. It was very emotional, and I begged and pleaded, and I talked to him until I finally got out of the woods. Got back to the Jeep, and the boyfriend was not on the ground where we were. He was in the Jeep with the music turned completely up and the doors locked. So I'm like, that's strange. But my main goal was to get out of there, to find my mom, to get to the doctor, and get out of that situation. So I sat on a stump in the middle of nowhere while the uncle shot the gun again into the water to wake him up. Knocked on the Jeep door, and he got out. I sat there a little longer while they went to get help. The boyfriend came back, the uncle did not. I never seen him again until we went to court. He took off. He left. The boyfriend was mad. Why did I do that? Why did I go out with the uncle? That's not what happened. I fought. He shot me. I did not go willingly. Slapped me across my face. So not only was I traumatized with the uncle, now the boyfriend is being mean. So I go on and I say, I just want to go home. Just take me to my mom. Take me home. You don't want to go anywhere else. I said, no, take me to my mom. We came upon a police cruiser at a little elementary school, and I said, stop. I'm going to talk to this guy. I'm going to talk to this police officer. So I did, and they called the ambulance to the school. It was a big ordeal. They took me by ambulance to the hospital, and the ambulance driver she was a family acquaintance, sort of like an in-law. And I told her, I said, can you call my mom? She said, yeah, I'll call your mom. So when I got to the hospital, my mom was there shortly after, and they go through a big procedure when you have been raped, and it's pretty intense. And being 18 and thinking you know everything, you get knocked down because you're like, okay, here I am thinking I know everything, and now here I am in this situation, which I never thought I'd be in ever, with somebody that I thought was supposed to be taking care of me. So that was that part of it. The court part was terrible because the lawyers are there to prove he's innocent. But in reality, the victim it's bad because you're treated like you've done something wrong. This man was 40 years old. I'm 18. He has tattoos all over, and he's been in prison for most of his life. He's a career criminal. So I go on with the court, and we go through that proceeding, which takes weeks, and with the DNA evidence and all that, he was guilty, and he's in prison in Roane County, or Morgan County, I think. Morgan County is where it's at. But we'll be there for the next little bit. I think 2023 is the release date. He's not eligible for any hearings or anything like that to get out earlier. But that's stuck with me all my life. This is 18 years. Not only that, I wound up marrying the boyfriend after all this. And I don't know why I did that either. I always thought, and still think in the back of my head, that maybe he had something to do with this. Maybe that was part of the plan. I'll never know. But I had Dalton when I was 20, and we'd moved here to Livingston. And once I had him, he was just a few months old and in a baby swing, and I was working at Jerry's IGA, and my husband was calling and calling and calling at my job, and he just wouldn't leave me alone. And I finally just came to the realization that this is not my life anymore today. And I called my mom from work, and I said, if you don't hear from me within the next 2 hours, you call the police department and you send him to this house, because he's leaving today, and this is the end of this relationship. She wanted to hear it. She was glad to hear it, because this is something that she never wanted this to happen with him. So she had the baby. I told him, the husband, you have to go back to Kentucky. You have to leave us alone. You're not going to put me through anything else from here on out. And I was told in my heart that, Candice, you got to let go of that, and you've got to tell your story. This is holding you back from everything that you want. So you had talked about it, and I thought, I'm going to tell my story. If I ever get the chance, I'm going to tell this story, because that's what I'm supposed to do. Not only for me, but somebody somewhere needs to hear this story. So I've been here every Sunday. I don't think I'm doing everything that I'm capable of, because I'm still not yet compliant. I've not done everything that I've been told to do. But the biggest part was telling this story. And I think that now that I have, that it's all going to fall into place, because it's not when I first believed, because I've always believed. It's being compliant and doing the things that I've been told to do. So my story is, when you hear something, you got to listen. Not run from it, not hide from it, not just think that you know what you're doing is the right thing to do, but to do what you're told to do. Whether you're scared to do it, whether you feel awkward in group settings and are afraid to go to life group, go to life group. I heard a story at life group Wednesday, and I thought, I'm going to tell my story too. I'm not holding it back any longer. So I think in all, bad things do happen, but it's how you turn it around and make the better of it. Because it may be terrible and it may be bad, but give it a little while. Pray about it. Get away from that, whatever it is that's holding you back. So I'm hoping now that I've told the story that I can move closer to God. I can be the better person. So that's my story.